to Red Book Film School, where I take you through my shadowing journey, one interview at a time. Today, I am joined with Steve DiUBaldo, who is a writer on Swagger, and the man, the myth, the legend, Orlando Jones, who is joining us in Atlanta traffic because we do this authentic here. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah, thank y'all for joining me. So I just kind of want to start with Steve, you were in the writer's room last season and this season as well. But Orlando, you are joining us this season. What is it like to come in as an actor on an already established show?
Tricky. Quite tricky. I was a real serious fan of the show. I reached out to Reggie after I saw season one, and it kind of hit me. It hit me in the heart, as it were. And I was like, it's beautiful, beautiful work. I don't know what anybody is telling you, but I love it. I did not expect that was going to wind up with me being on the show, but I'm very, very happy about the outcome. But whenever you're coming to an existing thing, I feel like you need to find how you can complement what's already there rather than, come in all over the place, as it were. So that's what I tried to do. Hopefully I succeeded at that, but the goal is to be a complementary instrument to the existing orchestra.
Oh, I love that. And so, Steve, going off that note, coming into a new season of a show, how do you elevate the material in the writer's room while maintaining what people still loved about the show in the first place?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I mean, first of all, that all starts with Reggie, usually from the writer's perspective. We kind of come in knowing that that's what we're going to be asked to do, knowing we're going to be challenged, because kind of you're not trying to elevate and push, what are you doing, And so we came in and, knowing we wanted to keep certain elements of the show intact, authentic basketball, something for the whole family to watch, and something that's telling stories that have a cause bigger than ourselves. Which is always central to what we're doing. And so, and especially given the fact that we did a time jump, which was necessary, but also kind of turned out to be a blessing in terms of the storytelling. I just really think it offered a chance to elevate, the kinds of stories that we're telling with everybody being a little bit older and setting it in this new environment. And so, the new environment certainly was a big part of it. And we kind of looked at Cedar Cove and that whole world as sort of a microcosm of America. And when you're starting from a place like that, digging deep, doing a lot of research, I feel like that's the work to elevate it. So I think all of that stuff really plays a big part in it.
Well, if y'all don't know, Steve is the writer on Maze 202. And I don't know if you've seen Steve, but people on social media have regarded that as a perfect episode, a perfect maze. And I really like what 212 and 203 that were both directed by Matthew Cherry do, is they're almost like a continuation of each other. It's like a part one and part two. And in that part two, we get so much more of Emery's, which is Orlando's character. We get so much backstory, so much as to why he is the way that he is in that microcosm of society, Cedar Cove, like you said. Emery is interesting to me, but Orlando, I want to know, like you said, there's an instruments and orchestra. When I was shadowing on set, you said, and I quote, "The instrument I chose to learn to play was me, learning what my instrument can do and making it do what I want it to do." So you described feelings as different notes. What do you feel like Emery's major notes are?
Silence, breath. He represses. That's what he's been taught to do. Look, there's an interesting component of his journal entry, which was my introduction to the character. Reggie sent me a journal entry for Emery. And Emery had a moment in his younger years where he got very upset during a tennis match, and he chose to play sports that were traditionally not played by African Americans. And he got really upset and had his, John McEnroe moment, right? And his parents told him that wasn't acceptable, that he had to be held to a higher standard. and that wasn't the way to comport himself as a competitor, and that certainly wasn't a way to comport himself as a representative for his culture in those sports. But ultimately, you're telling him to repress.
Right.
You're telling him you can't be whatever you think your authentic self and express your authentic feelings. You need to put those away and represent. So for me, the major note I wanted him to have was breath, and I think that's a lot of what he's going through, because he doesn't say it particularly, certainly not in the way that he means it.
Right.
So it's chess for him, right? It's, how do I move this there? How do I maintain composure? And I really saw him very much as that. So the major note for me, I really was happy about my ADR session, because my ADR session is primarily laying in all of Emperor's press.
Nice.
Love that.
So, Steve, can you talk a little bit of that from like the writing perspective of that silence and that pause, but also about these journal entries? Because I got one in season 1 as well as season 2 for Jackie. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, that was really, really cool part of our process. Like Reggie calls the first week or two of the writer's room Swagger University. And in season 1, it was a lot of acclimating to the AAU world and like really diving in and learning about that and social work and kind of what have you to fill out the world. And this season, we did a lot of that work. But in addition to that, we, kind of split up journal entries among the writers, and through conversation just dug into like what exactly has everybody been doing for the last 2 years, 3 years. And so it's a really fun part of the process. We write them early in the process of the writer's room. We read them out loud and we talk about it, and it's really helpful, both in terms of as we're building the story on the whiteboards and coming up with what the season's going to look like. It's helpful to, Reggie always starts with character. And so like, it's, as a former playwright myself, like I always found that really, really great. I love starting from there. And it just really helps you to ground in, and some of those things from those journals, make it into the story, but some don't. But I think ultimately it's in the very fabric of the dialogue and the character and especially with like the age up, just like subtle things that you would write just a little bit differently for a 17 or 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and super helpful just to know, what everybody's journey has been coming out of COVID and into the season 2 where we start.
So I want to talk about 202. Steve is the writer on Maze 202.
Yeah, so 202, well, first of all, it's a team effort, like in terms of breaking the story and what we're doing in the writer's room. But no, I was honored when Reggie told me I was writing 202. I was really excited about, writing the hour where we're seeing everyone from Swagger together at Cedar Cove for the first time. And yeah, I mean, it was just really an amazing process. As I was writing it, writing my draft, bouncing back and forth in collaboration with Reggie, who was also writing 201. There were just a lot of conversations going back and forth through the process. Stuff like Grant, like he'll hit me up and be like, "Hey, I want to try something in 201. What if Ike is interim in 202?" And so like it was evolving. Like that wasn't necessarily in the very first iteration of the first draft, and neither was it being Jace's 18th birthday. And so it was just really a cool process because we had a lot of moving pieces in 202. We knew we fell in love with the idea in the writer's room of Phil kind of being this entry point kind of tour guide into the Cedar Cove campus and culture from one of the teenagers' perspectives, and Ike and Tanya navigating that adult world of the culture. And so those were like really, like everybody was in love with that stuff right from the beginning. But I think what really unlocked it was kind of Reggie's revelation of wanting it to be Jace's 18th birthday, and it really, really unlocked the emotional depth, I think, for the character, but also as it pertains to his relationship with Crystal, as it pertains to his relationship with Jenna and his dad. And also like props to Reggie and the editor as well for threading in some of that nostalgia and those flashbacks in the game at the end. That wasn't originally scripted, but it totally works, and I think is a byproduct of the 18th birthday, obviously, and then the Thames song. It's just like it all just kind
It
of,
was dope.
like when this
So
stuff
dope.
really, when stuff works, it's always because there's so many people doing their job at such a high level. And so it was really just amazing. Even from the first cut, I was like, wow, like this feels great. Like I loved it. And it was just amazing to get to be the writer on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said, we see Ike and Tanya like navigating that adult world, and a lot of what they're navigating is Emory and the structure of that school. What, in Orlando, in your opinion, what do you feel like Emory's main goal at Cedar Cove is?
He states it. His primary goal is to create a more multicultural environment at that school, predominantly with kids that look like him and kids that come from the world that he comes from, right? Which is that, middle class, aspirational folks. It's a tricky world in general, because when you navigate people who don't have needs, they have wants. They have everything they need. So they are not often beholden to the same sort of if I don't do this, I don't eat. If I don't do this, I can't pay the mortgage. That's not a part of their world. So a lot of things are up to more lofty ideas. What's the perception? Is it the way I want to look? Is it the way I want to feel? I feel like those sorts of things are a huge part of Cedar Cove. And part of the reason Emory doesn't want Ike is he knows Ike is not equipped to navigate that world.
I think one of the things I really enjoy about Emory is how real he is from a completely different perspective than Ike. I think they give two very great ideologies that still want this initially the same goal, in my opinion, for people to succeed, for people of color to succeed. And having a character like that kind of like battle with Ike gives this really good story this season, this really good push and pull that I love that we get to see in 202 and a lot more in 203. You are eating him up in 203. Eating him up.
Look, he's unqualified, and I'm not wrong about that. And he is a linchpin, and I'm not wrong about that. And he doesn't have control of that group in the way that I need him to. And I, as the athletic director, I'm not wrong about that. So he's really tricky. For me, the turning point for Emory with Ike, or what makes Emory give Ike any level of respect, has far more to do with his wife than it does to do with Ike.
Wow.
Because Emory watches her navigate that situation beautifully, like a pro, like Emory navigates it, because she wraps Emory's boss around her finger in one night.
Yeah.
Emory did that same thing, I imagine, but she does. Emory immediately notices that. He immediately understands that. And he has to respect what she's able to accomplish, right? And I don't have Emory as a character linked to Jace. I have him linked to Crystal, because Crystal, like Emory, has to swallow everything.
Wow.
She's not in control of her own destiny. Things are happening to her, but she's not able to ultimately fight for herself. She tells him a secret that he acts upon. She doesn't want him to act upon that. So she finds herself in a situation, in my opinion, where she's much more aligned with Emory in the sense that she's not able to move as freely as she wants to. And Ike and Jace are able to move much more freely. I consider them privileged in the wrong way.
Steve, I just see you like nodding your head in agreement. One thing I love about actors and writers, and when they get to build off, when you have such a great script and then you have an actor who can elevate the words off the page, which I feel like, Orlando does so beautifully, is that there's this beautiful, like, you see what's written, but there's so many other things that are suggested in what you write. And I think one thing that Swagger does really well for me is they have a very diverse writers room with like Black writers, Latino writers, female writers, and like very high levels that can build to that perspective. And Steve being like one of the minority, like white male writer in that room, how has that enhanced the writing that you can do?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up as the one random white dude on my basketball team a lot.
Listen, we rocking with Steve because he's rocking with us.
So it's a place that I feel comfortable. And no, I think it's amazing to just be part of something that's telling, stories from so many different perspectives. I thought even what you were saying about kind of like and Emery wanting the same thing, but going about it in different ways. Like I just feel like honored to be able to be a part of something that's focusing on telling those stories and not trying to prescribe anything, but just like dig in and look at it and examine it and ask challenging questions that maybe we don't always get the answers to, but kind of the search to answer those questions is what's worthwhile, kind of like the journey versus the destination that we have so eloquently in 201 by Dr. Emery.
If you don't know what he's talking about, you need to watch. That's you need to watch.
But certainly, like for me, it was really fun going from season 1 to season 2. I love getting to know Orlando and was excited as soon as he was cast, and then getting to know him, and we hooped together in 203. That was fun too. It's amazing to be a part of. I think everybody that works on Swagger would tell you, whether it's a writer or a PA, that one of the most fun parts about, maybe the best part about working on Swagger is the people.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
3,000%. Steve is being modest. Steve can play. Steve's a baller. Steve's also a great writer, but Steve is also mad cool. He just come and hang out with you and chill with you and ask a few things that you don't think are related, and then you find that nuance somehow reflected in something later.
Yes.
But the family of Swagger is by far, and I've had some wonderful, beautiful experiences over here, but nothing is emotionally impactful as Swagger for me. I really feel like it's a family. Like, I don't like the people. I legitimately love the people. And I think it's reflected in the work by everyone there. But I love these people. Like, you, Steve, Reggie, Provenzine, and I mean, it goes on. I mean, I'm a coach's son, right? And so the family of the team and the objective of the group is how I was raised. I don't know anything else. But the group usually doesn't share that mindset.
Right.
In this case, it's top to bottom. Everybody did. And so you see that reflected in the work people put in off camera and the relationships people put in off camera. And you see the complexity of those relationships on camera unfold. And that for me was next level. I cried through most of Swagger, and they're not tears of pain, they're tears of joy. I'm so moved by it that I find it super emotional to talk about. I found my experience super emotional. I had an interview today with Chicago Tribune, and that was the entire interview, was the writer telling me how she couldn't sit it down, how it stayed with her, how it's still with her. And I'm sure, Steve, that's happy news for you, but she was deeply affected by it, as I was in season 1 and even season 2. And normally, I'll be honest with you, I hate watching me. So for me to be affected in anything I'm a part of is just a whole new experience for me.
That's cool.
That's so dope. That's like the perfect note to end on. I think I just have so much love for this show, so much love for the people in this show, the people in every department, on every level. because and the people that watch our show, I love the feedback, and I love that they can see that this is something that we all really care about. And I want to thank you both for sitting with me and talking with me and sharing your experience. And I hope y'all enjoyed it, and we'll have another episode for you real soon.